Hold on, because what just happened in Cleveland isn't about a touchdown, a trade, or even a press conference. It's about one Instagram like. Just a single tap on a screen that sent shockwaves through an entire NFL franchise. Shedeur Sanders didn't throw a pass, didn't post a caption, and didn't say a single word. Yet somehow, he managed to set the entire Browns organization on fire. Fans are losing their minds, analysts are scrambling to decode what it means, and even people inside the building are reportedly in full-blown panic mode. Because in a city already famous for quarterback chaos, this might be the wildest twist yet. What started as a normal bye week just turned into a full-scale controversy, and the craziest part? It all began with one silent move that might just change the Browns season forever. This isn't just about social media. It's about timing, power, and the quiet confidence of a rookie who knows exactly what he's doing. Because while everyone else in Cleveland was licking its wounds after that humiliating loss in New England, Shedeur Sanders made a statement louder than any press conference. He's ready. He's watching. And he wants the world to know it. But that's only the beginning, because that one like didn't just start a conversation, it exposed everything that's been broken inside the Browns organization for months. And what comes next might be even bigger. It all started so quietly that most people almost missed it. No flashy headline, no press release, just a single red heart on an Instagram post. But in Cleveland, where quarterback controversies seem to grow like weeds, that one small gesture was enough to send the entire city spiraling into chaos. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback everyone's been whispering about, scrolled through his feed and did what millions of people do every day. He double-tapped. The post? A fan-made graphic claiming he should be the starter after the bye week. One like, one tap, one moment that completely flipped the narrative inside the Browns locker room. Within minutes, the screenshot was everywhere. ESPN Cleveland picked it up, talk radio hosts were yelling into microphones, fans flooded social media with takes, theories, and fiery debates. Finally, someone with confidence, one side shouted. The other side rolled their eyes, groaning, "Here we go again, another Cleveland quarterback saga." And while everyone else lost their minds, Shedeur stayed silent, calm, unbothered, almost like he planned it that way. What made this moment explode wasn't just what he did, it was when he did it. The Browns were supposed to be taking a breath, healing from one of the ugliest losses in franchise history. Their offense had looked broken, their coach was under fire, their starter, Dillon Gabriel, was being questioned by everyone from fans to ownership. The team was at a crossroads, and then Shedeur's like dropped like a match into a puddle of gasoline. Cleveland's sports scene thrives on drama, and this was pure chaos fuel. Analysts started dissecting it like it was a presidential statement. Was it shade, confidence, a call-out, or maybe a carefully timed power play? Nobody knew for sure, but everyone agreed on one thing. It wasn't accidental. Because in an age where one post can shift public opinion, Shedeur's quiet move wasn't just noticed, it was felt. That like became a message. To the coaches who've kept him on the bench, to the fans who've been begging for change, to the organization that can't seem to stay out of its own way. Without saying a single word, Shedeur made his presence impossible to ignore. And as the city burned with speculation, one thing became clear. Cleveland's quarterback drama had just evolved from a football issue into a full-blown media storm. But that wasn't the end of it. In fact, that tiny digital gesture was just the beginning of something much, much bigger. Because to really understand why this shook Cleveland to its core, you have to look deeper, past the social media headlines, past the fan reactions, and into the dysfunction that's been festering behind closed doors for months. And that's where this story takes an even darker turn.
To really understand why one Instagram like could throw an entire NFL franchise into chaos, you have to peel back the curtain and see what's been brewing inside the Browns organization for months. This wasn't some random overreaction by fans. It was the final spark that exposed a fire that's been burning behind the scenes all season. What looks like a simple social media moment is really the latest chapter in a long, messy story of miscommunication, power struggles, and pride. Inside the walls of Berea, the tension has been thick. Reports have quietly hinted that not everyone in the Browns building agrees on the direction of the team or even who should be leading it on the field. The head coach, Kevin Stefanski, and the general manager, Andrew Berry, aren't exactly on the same page. Stefanski wants control over his system, his players, his vision. Berry, on the other hand, sees talent and value first, even when it doesn't fit perfectly into a coach's scheme. And right between those two opposing philosophies sits one name, Shedeur Sanders. When the Browns drafted Dillon Gabriel in the third round, it looked like business as usual. He was Stefanski's guy, accurate, conservative, the definition of a system quarterback. But a few rounds later, Berry made a move that changed everything. Sitting on the board was Shedeur Sanders, a player scouts had projected to go in the late first or early second round. A proven leader at Colorado, elite accuracy, unshakable poise under pressure. Berry couldn't pass him up. The pick made sense, on paper. But to Stefanski, it wasn't just another draft choice. It was a statement. From that moment, whispers started. The coach didn't want him. The GM overruled him. And the rookie quarterback became the pawn in a quiet internal battle. Players could feel the tension. Reporters started noticing inconsistencies. The team would publicly call Shedeur the backup, but never give him first-team reps. They'd praise his potential in interviews, then bury him on the practice depth chart. It was weird, confusing, dysfunctional. One Browns insider described it perfectly. It's like they drafted him for show, not to actually play him. The front office wanted to show fans they were investing in the future, the coaching staff wanted to prove they were right about their system, and caught in the middle was a young quarterback doing everything right, studying, working, waiting, but being treated like he didn't exist. That's why Shedeur's Instagram like hit so hard. It wasn't just a reaction to a random post, it was a subtle response to months of being ignored, to being told to wait his turn while watching a broken offense fall apart week after week. It was the quiet clapback of a player who's been forced to stay silent in a situation he never created. And while fans saw chaos, what insiders saw was something else entirely. A power struggle playing out in real time. Because when an organization is divided at the top, every small thing, every comment, every rumor, every like becomes a battlefield. The Browns have been here before, and history is repeating itself in the most Cleveland way possible. But this time, it feels different. Because this time, the rookie in the middle of it all isn't panicking. He's patient, calculated, watching the dysfunction unfold and waiting for the moment it finally implodes. And that moment, it started long before Instagram ever got involved. It started on draft day.
Draft day in Cleveland was supposed to be about hope, a fresh start, new talent, and another chance to fix what's been broken for years. But behind the smiles, the handshake photos, and the corporate sound bites, something deeper was happening. Something that would quietly divide the Browns from the inside out. Because the moment that second quarterback was drafted, a power struggle was born. Kevin Stefanski had already gotten his guy, Dillon Gabriel, smart, efficient, obedient. A quarterback who fit the system perfectly, who'd run the playbook exactly as written. Stefanski saw him as the safe choice, the kind of player who wouldn't go rogue, who would follow orders even if it meant checking the ball down every play. To the coach, Gabriel was more than a pick. He was validation of his philosophy. But Andrew Berry, the general manager, wasn't thinking about systems. He was thinking about talent.
He was watching the fifth round unfold when he noticed something that didn't make sense. Shedeur Sanders was still available. A player with first-round potential, elite production at Colorado, leadership pedigree, and the calmness of a 10-year veteran. Barry didn't see a backup. He saw value too good to ignore. And that's when it happened. The moment that split the Browns in two. Barry called the pick. Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland. A decision that stunned analysts, surprised the draft room, and immediately raised eyebrows. Stefanski didn't say much publicly, but people inside the building noticed the look on his face. The message was clear. This wasn't his guy. From that point forward, the friction was impossible to miss. Stefanski ran his training camps like Sanders didn't exist. No first-team reps, no preseason showcase, no opportunities to compete. Even when Gabriel struggled, the staff doubled down. To outsiders, it looked like a rookie just learning the ropes. To insiders, it looked like payback, a silent tug-of-war between a GM protecting his investment and a head coach protecting his ego. Players began whispering about it in the locker room. Reporters started piecing it together. Why draft a quarterback that high if you're not going to use him? And the answer, though never said aloud, was simple. Because Shedeur Sanders wasn't part of the plan. He was a symbol of control, a move that challenged the head coach's authority. That's what made the situation so volatile. Every bad throw from Gabriel, every lost game, every offensive misfire made the tension worse. Stefanski couldn't bench his own pick without admitting he'd been wrong. Barry couldn't stay quiet without watching his draft investment rot on the sideline. And through it all, Shedeur waited, respectful, composed, unbothered, as two powerful men fought an invisible war over his future. Draft day was supposed to unite the Browns. Instead, it drew a line down the middle of the organization. One side built on control, the other built on conviction. And now, months later, that quiet draft room standoff is finally spilling into public view, because the same rookie they tried to keep quiet just found the loudest way possible to remind everyone he's still here. And that Instagram like, that wasn't random. It was the first real shot fired in a battle that's been simmering since draft night. But the real explosion, the one that might change everything, was still to come. From the outside, it looked like the Browns were simply developing a young quarterback. But if you looked closer, really looked, you could see something much darker brewing beneath the surface.
What was supposed to be a normal rookie adjustment period quickly turned into a silent exile. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just being eased in slowly, he was being frozen out. Every sign was there. Not a single first-team rep in practice. Not one preseason series that actually mattered. Even during games where Dillon Gabriel looked lost, Stefanski never budged. The message was loud and clear. Shedeur wasn't part of the plan. And for players inside that locker room, the silence around it was deafening. Coaches kept dodging questions, saying things like, "We're bringing him along the right way," or "He's learning the system." But anyone who's watched football long enough knows when something doesn't add up. You don't draft a quarterback with that kind of talent and then hide him behind the clipboard for half a season, unless there's something else going on. Reporters started to notice the inconsistencies. One Cleveland beat writer described it perfectly. It's bizarre. They list Shedeur as the backup, but he's getting third-string treatment. They talk about his potential, but he never even throws to the starting receivers. It's like they're pretending he doesn't exist. And fans? They weren't buying the development excuse either. Every week that passed, every snap Gabriel took where the offense stalled, the frustration grew louder. After the humiliating loss in New England, that frustration boiled over. Gabriel's performance was a disaster. Missed reads, panic throws, zero energy. The offense looked lifeless, broken, hopeless. By halftime, fans were chanting Shedeur's name. By the end of the game, the city was done waiting.
Social media lit up with the same question. Why isn't Shedeur playing? The local talk shows were relentless. Analysts began openly questioning Stefanski's motives. Was it about football or pride? Was he really convinced Gabriel gave them the best chance to win, or was he just refusing to admit he'd been outdrafted by his own GM? Meanwhile, Shedeur stayed quiet. No interviews, no complaints, no passive-aggressive posts, just work. He kept showing up early, studying film, taking his limited scout team reps seriously. He was doing everything right, and somehow that made the situation even harder to justify. Everyone could see the problem, but nobody inside the organization had the courage to fix it. That's what makes what happened next so fascinating, because when an entire franchise ignores a problem long enough, pressure starts to build. And eventually, something or someone has to snap. In this case, it wasn't a rant or a confrontation or a sideline outburst. It was one simple action on social media that said everything without saying a word. When Shedeur liked that post about him starting after the bye week, it wasn't some random moment of ego. It was calculated. It was the quiet response of a player who's been frozen out, overlooked, and underestimated, and finally decided to let the world know he's paying attention. That one move turned months of buried tension into breaking news. Because when a franchise this dysfunctional tries to silence talent for the sake of pride, even a rookie knows you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, all it takes is one perfectly timed message. And that's exactly what Shedeur delivered. But the genius behind that move, the strategy, the precision, the way it flipped the entire narrative overnight, deserves a closer look. Because that wasn't a rookie mistake. That was a masterclass in control.
There's a difference between being impulsive and being intentional, and Shedeur Sanders has always been intentional. That single Instagram like wasn't a slip of the thumb. It was a calculated move. A silent message crafted with precision, timed perfectly, and aimed straight at the heart of the Browns' dysfunction. In an era where one click can dominate headlines, Shedeur didn't need to say a word to make everyone listen. Think about the timing. The team was on a bye week, still reeling from one of the most embarrassing losses of the season. The locker room was quiet, morale was low, and questions about the quarterback situation were growing louder by the day. Coaches were scrambling to hold the narrative together, and fans were starting to lose faith. That's when Shedeur made his move. One like, on one post, at the exact moment the organization was most vulnerable. The post itself wasn't explosive. It was a fan's suggestion that he should be the starter after the bye week. But the meaning behind that like, that's where the power was. It said, I see what you're saying. It said, I'm ready. It said, I'm not afraid. And most importantly, it said, I belong here. Within minutes, that small act exploded into something much bigger. Screenshots spread across social media. Sports outlets picked it up. Talk radio went into overdrive. Fans started dissecting the gesture like it was a cryptic message from a presidential speech. Some saw confidence, others saw rebellion. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was intentional. What made it so brilliant was what didn't come after. No deleted posts, no clarification, no PR cleanup. Shedeur didn't backtrack, didn't explain, didn't give anyone the satisfaction of an easy interpretation. He just let it breathe. And in doing so, he gave the world exactly what he wanted. Speculation, conversation, and control. Because make no mistake, this wasn't about attention. It was about leverage. Shedeur's move forced the Browns brass to confront what they'd been avoiding. It forced the media to talk about him again. It reminded the ownership that they had a player fans were demanding to see. It reminded the locker room that he hadn't disappeared. He was still here, waiting, working, and ready to take over when the opportunity came. It also sent a different kind of message, one that only the people inside the building could truly feel. To his teammates, it said, I haven't given up. To the coaches who've frozen him out, it said, I'm not going anywhere. And to the fans, it said, you're right to believe in me. All of that communicated with a single tap of the screen. That's not just confidence,
That's understanding how to control the narrative in a world where perception is everything. While other players go to war on social media, rant in interviews, or create distractions, Shedeur played chess. One move, no noise, total impact. It's the same calm, calculated mindset he shows on the field. Never rushed, never rattled, always thinking 2 steps ahead. He knows the power of patience. He knows that in a league obsessed with chaos, silence can be the loudest sound of all. And Cleveland heard it, loud and clear. That's why this wasn't just a rookie social media moment. It was a statement of control over his image, his career, and maybe soon over the Browns' future. Because when a single like can shake an entire franchise, it's not luck, it's strategy.
But strategy is only as powerful as what comes next. Because one calculated move doesn't just spark a reaction, it sets off a chain of events. And for the Browns, that chain reaction was about to spiral into something no one could stop. The moment Shedeur's like hit the internet, Cleveland imploded. It was like watching a spark hit dry grass. Within hours, it turned into a wildfire. The post itself wasn't even from an official account. It wasn't breaking news, it wasn't a press release. It was just a fan-made graphic that said what most people were already thinking. Start Shedeur after the bye. But the second his name lit up under that post, everything changed. Sports talk shows scrambled to rearrange their segments. ESPN Cleveland led with it. National outlets like NFL Network and Bleacher Report picked it up. Overnight, the Instagram like became the story. Not the team's record, not their injuries, not the offensive struggles, that like. Every headline read the same. Did Shedeur Sanders just call out his coaches? On Twitter, fans split into 2 camps. One side was ecstatic, convinced this was the moment the Browns would finally wake up. He's got that dog in him. He knows it's time. Others rolled their eyes, warning that Cleveland didn't need more drama. It's just one like, they argued. Don't make it a circus. But deep down, everyone knew Cleveland is a circus when it comes to quarterbacks. Always has been, always will be. And while fans fought online, the local media turned into detectives. They zoomed in on timestamps, compared posts, debated whether Shedeur had liked and then unliked it. He hadn't. Analysts went live on air trying to decode his mindset. Was this frustration, confidence, a challenge to authority? Every possible angle was dissected in real time. Then came the insiders. Reports began to surface that members of the Browns coaching staff were not pleased with the move. Some viewed it as disrespectful. Others, though, quietly admitted they understood the frustration. After all, the team's offense had been lifeless for weeks, and the locker room was starting to feel it. A few players even dropped cryptic social media posts of their own. Subtle nods, emojis, maybe even support. The kind of quiet gestures that say more than words ever could. By midweek, you couldn't walk into a sports bar in Cleveland without hearing someone debating the Instagram incident. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had a side. And Shedeur, he said nothing. Not a single statement. No clarifications, no interviews. Just silence. Which, ironically, made the noise even louder. That's what made it so powerful. The less he said, the more everyone else did. His silence became the headline. It forced the organization to react, and that's when things started to unravel inside the building. Reporters at practice noticed tension. Stefanski looked visibly irritated. Some players seemed distracted. Rumors started spreading that ownership wasn't happy with how the coaching staff had handled the rookie from day one. The like didn't just cause a media storm. It exposed a fracture that had been quietly splitting the team apart. Because here's the thing about storms. They don't create weakness, they reveal it. And the Browns had plenty to reveal. The front office and coaching staff were no longer aligned. The fans had turned. The media was circling, and now all eyes were on Shedeur, the rookie who hadn't thrown a single NFL pass, but somehow managed to control the narrative of an entire franchise.
While everyone else scrambled to interpret his intentions, Shedeur kept doing what he'd been doing all along, staying calm, studying, preparing. He didn't need to defend himself. He didn't need to clarify anything,
because whether it was planned or instinctual, that like had already done its job. The storm wasn't about to die down, it was only gaining strength. And as Cleveland's chaos reached its peak, the timing of it all couldn't have been more perfect. The bye week was ending, the next game was approaching, and whispers were growing louder. The Browns might actually be preparing to make a change. Because when a franchise starts drowning in controversy, there's only one way to quiet the noise. Give the people what they want. And what Cleveland wanted, now, was clear. They wanted Shedeur Sanders under center. Timing. In football, it's everything. And right now, every single second feels like it's leading toward one moment. The debut of Shedeur Sanders. The chaos, the controversy, the noise, it all built up to this. Because as fate would have it, the Browns' schedule just handed them the perfect setup for a quarterback change. The team was heading into the bye week, the one stretch of the season when everything slows down, when coaches have time to rethink, retool, and rebuild. And after the embarrassment in New England, the Browns desperately needed to hit reset. Reports started surfacing that ownership was demanding answers, that even the locker room was losing faith in the current direction. The offense wasn't just broken, it was lifeless. The fan base had turned restless, and suddenly all eyes were on one name, Shedeur Sanders. It wasn't just the timing that made this moment perfect, it was the matchup. The next game on the schedule? The New York Jets, a struggling defense, a shaky offense, a team that's been its own disaster all season long, a manageable challenge. The kind of game where a young quarterback can find his rhythm, build confidence, and make a statement without being thrown straight into the fire. That's why whispers started leaking from inside Berea. The Browns might actually be preparing something. Coaches were reportedly splitting first-team reps during practice, even though they refused to confirm it publicly. Analysts noticed changes in body language. Assistant coaches were suddenly praising Shedeur's work ethic and film study in interviews. And then came the most telling clue of all. The Browns weren't ruling anything out for after the bye. According to local insiders, the organization was seriously considering giving Shedeur a full week of preparation as the starter. Not a backup filling in, not a last-minute emergency plan, but a fully structured game plan built around his strengths. Quick reads, movement in the pocket, play-action shots that capitalize on his accuracy and decision-making. The kind of offense that fits him, not the one that's been failing under Gabriel. Even national reporters started catching on. Ian Rappaport mentioned that the Browns were evaluating all quarterback options heading into the Jets game. In Cleveland speak, that's as close as you get to confirmation without saying it out loud. Fans could feel it. The city could feel it. The team that's been searching for a spark might finally be ready to pull the trigger. And really, it makes perfect sense. The season isn't lost yet, but it's slipping. The team sits at 2-8, dangling at the edge of relevance. A fresh start at quarterback could flip the entire narrative, rally the locker room, and reignite a fan base that's been desperate for something to believe in.
But there's more to this timing than just football logic. It's psychological. After weeks of dysfunction and silence, Shedeur's patience has become his greatest weapon. He didn't beg for the job. He didn't lash out. He let the chaos play out naturally. And now, the situation has come to him. The same organization that froze him out is now being pressured into giving him the opportunity they once denied. And the best part? He's ready. People inside the building have quietly said it for weeks. His film sessions are elite. His command of the offense is impressive. His composure under pressure stands out. Even those who were skeptical in the beginning are starting to admit it. He's got it. The accuracy, the calm, the leadership. That's what makes this moment so perfect. Everything is lining up. The timing, the matchup, the momentum, the public pressure. Even fate seems to be nudging Cleveland toward the inevitable. Because if not now, when? The Jets game isn't just another week on the schedule. It's a crossroads. It's the moment where the Browns either double down on dysfunction or finally embrace change. And if they do hand the keys to Shedeur, one thing's certain, this won't be just another rookie debut. It'll be the start of something that could rewrite Cleveland's story, and maybe even Shedeur's legacy. Because opportunities like this don't come often in the NFL. But when they do, the great ones don't hesitate. They take the field, take control, and never give the job back. And for Shedeur Sanders, that moment might be just days away. When people talk about Shedeur Sanders, they can't help but mention one name that looms like a shadow: Deion Sanders. Primetime, one of the most electrifying athletes to ever touch a football field. A man who turned confidence into a weapon and swagger into an art form. But what makes Shedeur's story so fascinating isn't just that he's Deion's son. It's how he's different. How he's taken that same DNA, that same aura, and redefined it for a new generation. Deion made noise with gold chains, touchdown dances, and bold declarations. He was the storm. Shedeur, on the other hand, is the calm before it. His power isn't in volume, it's in precision. He doesn't talk, he moves strategically. He doesn't shout, he lets the world connect the dots. That single Instagram like, that was prime-time energy, adapted for the social media era. A modern twist on the same unshakable confidence his father built a career on. Because make no mistake, that calm, quiet demeanor isn't passivity. It's control. It's a weapon. And it's the same kind of control Deion showed when the world doubted him. Like father, like son. Both men know how to command attention without begging for it. Both know that the true power isn't in reacting to the noise, it's in creating it. Deion's legacy isn't just his highlight reels or his Hall of Fame jacket, it's his mentality. The "I believe in me" mindset that turns pressure into fuel. The same energy that turned critics into witnesses. And that's exactly what we're seeing now with Shedeur. He's playing chess in a league full of people playing checkers, just like his father did 3 decades ago. But here's what makes Shedeur truly special. He's not trying to be Deion Sanders 2.0. He's not performing for the cameras or chasing flash. He's studying film, staying composed, and quietly mastering his craft. His confidence isn't loud, it's earned. He's building a legacy that honors his father's swagger, but expresses it in his own way, through precision, patience, and poise.
It's the evolution of the Sanders brand. Not just about showmanship, but about substance. Deion changed how athletes carried themselves. Shedeur is changing how young quarterbacks control their image in the digital age. He's proving that you don't need to yell to make headlines, and you don't need to talk to lead. In fact, sometimes silence speaks the loudest. And that's what terrifies his critics and electrifies his fans. Because when someone carries both the pedigree and the self-awareness, they're not just another player. They're a movement waiting to happen. The Sanders name has always represented confidence, charisma, and control. But with Shedeur, it represents something even bigger. Legacy with intention. Every move, every gesture, every moment feels like part of a long game. And the truth is, this family doesn't just chase success, they expect it. So when Shedeur eventually takes that field in Cleveland, it won't just be another rookie taking snaps. It'll be the continuation of a legacy that's been decades in the making. A father who changed the game, a son who's learning how to redefine it. And just like his dad, when the moment comes, when the lights are brightest and the pressure is at its peak, you better believe Shedeur Sanders will be ready. Because in the Sanders family, confidence isn't arrogance, it's preparation meeting destiny. And Cleveland might just be the stage where that destiny finally begins. And now, Cleveland stands at the edge of a decision that could define not just a season, but an era. Everything that's happened so far, the dysfunction, the power struggle, the silence, the social media chaos has led to this exact moment. The question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders can start. It's whether the Browns will finally have the courage to let him. Because right now, the entire NFL is watching. They've seen this story before. Cleveland, drowning in potential, suffocating under its own pride. The Browns have a bad habit of protecting egos instead of embracing change. But this time, the pressure feels different. This time, it's not just fans demanding something new, it's the narrative itself forcing their hand. Kevin Stefanski is running out of time, and everyone knows it. The front office is under the microscope, the fan base has turned restless, ownership is reportedly frustrated. The team's sitting at 2-6, and the offense looks like it's running in reverse. There's only one move left that makes any kind of sense. Hand the reins to Shedeur Sanders and see what happens. And that's what makes this next chapter so fascinating. Because it's not just about football anymore. It's about identity. Will the Browns continue being the team that folds under dysfunction, or will they finally become the team that embraces risk? The team that listens to its fans, to its locker room, to common sense? The potential payoff is huge. If he starts and delivers even a spark, a few electric plays, a glimpse of the composure and precision he showed at Colorado, the entire city will rally behind him. The stadium will come alive. The locker room will feel hope again. It's the kind of moment that can flip a narrative, rejuvenate a fan base, and reshape a franchise's future overnight. But the risk is real too. If he starts and struggles, critics will pounce. They'll say he wasn't ready. They'll say the hype was premature. And knowing Cleveland, they'll probably turn it into another quarterback controversy before halftime. That's just how this city operates. Passionate, emotional, unpredictable.
Still, even with the risk, doing nothing might be worse. Because every week the Browns stay stuck in the same losing loop. The more obvious it becomes, this team needs something. A spark, a belief, a reason to care again. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is that reason. He's the story, the movement, the possibility. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question. Does Stefanski swallow his pride and give Shedeur a real shot? Does Andrew Berry step in and force the decision? Or do they keep clinging to the same formula that's been failing for years, hoping somehow, magically, it all turns around? The next few days will tell us everything about this organization. Whether they care more about winning or being right. Whether they'll make the bold move everyone's waiting for or retreat back into the same old patterns that have haunted this team for decades. But here's the thing. No matter what the Browns decide, the conversation has already shifted. Shedeur's name is out there. The fans have chosen their side. The narrative belongs to him now. And even if the coaches aren't ready to admit it yet, his moment is coming, whether it's next week, next month, or next season. Because you can't contain momentum forever. You can't silence the inevitable. And right now, every sign points to the same conclusion. Cleveland's future doesn't belong to Dillon Gabriel. It belongs to Shedeur Sanders. The only question left is whether the Browns will be brave enough to realize it before it's too late. So here we are, the calm before Cleveland's next storm. The fan base is restless, the locker room is tense, and one rookie quarterback has managed to flip the entire city upside down without saying a single word. What happens next will tell us everything we need to know about the Browns, not just as a football team, but as an organization. Will they finally embrace change, or will they once again find a way to sabotage themselves? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about one quarterback. It's about accountability. It's about growth. It's about whether the Browns have finally learned from their history or are doomed to repeat it again. And if they don't make the right move soon, that decision could define every career in that building. Shedeur Sanders didn't come to Cleveland to sit quietly forever. He's waited, studied, prepared. He's watched this team fall apart from the sidelines, knowing he can make a difference. That Instagram like wasn't just a headline. It was a promise, a reminder that he's here, he's watching, and when his moment comes, he's ready to take it. And honestly, Cleveland should want him to. This city deserves a quarterback who plays with confidence, not fear. A leader who doesn't just talk about change, but is the change. Someone who brings swagger back to a franchise that's forgotten what it feels like to believe. So as the Browns head into what could be the most pivotal week of their season, one thing's clear. All eyes are on Berea. The fans are waiting. The NFL is watching. And somewhere quietly scrolling through his feed, Shedeur Sanders is smiling. Calm, confident, and patient. Because he knows his time is coming. When that call finally comes, when he steps onto the field in that brown and orange uniform for the first time, everything changes. For him, for Cleveland, for the entire narrative of what this team could be.
So if you've made it this far, you already know what's next. Smash that like button if you believe the Browns need to make the move. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Shedeur start after the bye, or should Cleveland play it safe one more week? And don't forget to subscribe, because this story isn't over, not even close. When the Browns finally make their decision, we'll be right here breaking it all down. Every leak, every headline, every snap. Because whether the Browns are ready or not, one thing's certain: Shedeur Sanders is coming. And when he does, Cleveland football will never be the same again.